everyone, and welcome to Conversations with Anglicans. My name is Ayanna James, and today I'm speaking with Liselle Ramcharan-Briscoe, an Anglican that used to live in Trinidad and now resides in Mississauga, Canada. Thank you so much, Liselle, for taking the time to chat with me today.
Oh, my pleasure, Ayanna. Thanks for asking. I feel honored, I
Yes.
must say. Thank you.
So, welcome. So, tell me about the COVID situation in your neck of the woods in Mississauga, Canada. What's going on with mass restrictions on your end?
Okay, so it started, so Canada had done, and particularly in Ontario, we started doing a really good job with COVID and with the restrictions and the lockdown. And what happened over summer and in the last couple of weeks, there's actually been a resurgence. There was no mandatory use of masks all over, but certainly in going into certain locations, we had to wear masks going into the supermarkets, etc. And so now there are three particular regions in Ontario where the numbers have started to go back up.
Mm-hmm.
And so now as a first step, they've said no more, basically it's boiled down to no more parties. A lot of the cases were linked to a few weddings. And in doing their tracing, they realized that the source was the weddings. Now, there's a bit of controversy because some people feel that if you are clamping down on get-togethers and taking it back down to 10, then why are we allowing mass gatherings for everything else? So for
Right,
example, the church that I attend, they plan on starting back in-person services, but those numbers will be higher.
right,
And the argument has basically been that they, like in the stores and the churches, etc., they have more protocols in place.
mm-hmm.
They have a strict guideline. Even for the church, the diocese needs to approve the plans before they are actually allowed to open again. So, it's still a big deal. Although I will admit, sometimes I go to some places and wonder if they realize that COVID exists. But
Right,
any store you go into, everything you go to, you must wear a mask. And the kids are reminded every day about their hand hygiene and that there's COVID and to try and keep a distance. You see these signs all over. But not every part in Ontario has had the restrictions because it's three main areas that actually have the resurgence in the numbers that they're seeing a pattern, so they know
oh.
where to focus.
So what you're saying is that you don't have any church services going on now in
So
your.
we actually have our church services on Zoom.
Oh,
It was
okay.
interesting. Yeah, so we have three church services on Zoom, and I go to the 11 o'clock service where we have quite a few more of the older folks, and it's nice
Right.
to see the older folks embracing the technology.
Yes.
Um, but for my particular parish, we have not started back the in-person
Okay.
services. A lot of people are nervous. I know certainly some of the older folk, they're saying even if they do start back the in-person service, that they will not, they'll continue to go on Zoom. And I appreciate that because one of my concerns has been as a younger person younger, with young children, a lot of them are like grandparents to my kids and they will just go in and want to hug everybody. So
Yes.
what risk are we going to introduce? Um, it's interesting, the Roman Catholic Church here had actually, the Roman Catholic Church here, as soon as the restrictions were lifted, they opened their doors again.
Right.
But the Anglican Church said no, they're going to take a hiatus for the summer.
Mm-hmm.
And come September, people can decide because, you know, as similar to what teachers have had to experience with having to switch to this online platform, is a huge learning curve for the priests as well,
Mm-hmm.
trying to deliver their ministry in a place where we're under lockdown.
Yeah,
So it was
exactly.
so nice, like in Canada and really globally, to see people becoming creative with the technology, embracing the technology. But it's hard when you have shut-ins and other people that you couldn't
Yes.
physically go. And so I think a lot of those things took a huge toll on our clergy. And so I really respected the fact that the diocese said, you know what, let's figure this thing out. We're not in a rush. We don't know what this is going to look like, and we're more concerned about the safety of our clergy and our congregation before just dashing back in to open all the doors. So
Yeah,
no,
that sounds
that's
That sounds good. I mean, in Trinidad as well, I'm pretty sure you've seen some of the offerings that we have on Facebook and so forth. And I'm really pleased to see that a lot of clergy, have embraced the technology. But the same situation is, how do we bring in the shut-ins and the people in the areas that don't have Wi-Fi? But I guess we could figure that
Yeah.
out as time goes on. Happening. But I want to know about you before that. What parish you attended when you were in Trinidad? I know you grew up in South. For me,
Yes.
South is like this far land. But what parish you attended? What activities you were involved in? What was being an Anglican? What did that mean to you?
Okay. I am very proudly Anglican. I remember back in the day, there was even a whole, what they call it, a campaign, Proud to be Anglican. I've always been one of those. I grew up in St. Stephen's Parish in Princestown. Um, that's all I can remember up until I went to university.
Right.
Um, and I think I've always felt it to be this great parish. I went through, like, in my teenage years, saying I don't want to be an Anglican anymore and I want to go somewhere. And my mom was like, anywhere you go, you're going to have to deal with this, something. There will
Mm-hmm.
always be something in a church. And you need to learn to stay where you are
Mm-hmm.
and benefit from what is in it. So it doesn't matter if they're not singing the way you want them to sing. Are you reading the words in the Book of Common Prayer? Are you understanding what it is? Are you trying to hear the message that God is sending to you? So I remember, like, I attended Sunday school. We had an amazing vacation Bible school program that was sponsored by, I believe, is a church in Scotland. And if I'm wrong, sorry, but it was definitely sponsored. But what it allowed is this fantastic vacation Bible school. We had these packages that they would send, and it was this quality material that the church was able to offer to the community for not much money. So we had this great, I grew up with a great Sunday school program as far as I was concerned, vacation Bible school, interesting youth group,
Right.
being able to participate with things in programs on a diocesan level. And then I also went to an Anglican primary school.
Right.
I went to San Fernando Girls Anglican. And now, as I got older, I saw how we had some stalwart Anglicans there as well, right? So in terms of the morning prayer and singing from the hymnal, all those songs that you've learned and have stuck with you over the years, preparing to go and to read the lessons at St. Paul's because you'd have to go to service. I remember even as in San Francisco Anglican, being a part of like the quiz for religious studies. I remember participating in Mothers Union quiz representing
Mm-hmm.
the church. So I just feel as if, there was always something to do. And I have a mom who I consider to be a proud Anglican and who does what she can to support the community. And what was an interesting fact for me is I found out my grandfather, he's passed now, he was also an Anglican.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a sister in St. Kitts Nevis who was so much of an active member in the Anglican Communion that when she passed, they buried her at the entrance to the church door,
Wow.
which they didn't do for anybody else, but it was
Right.
because, so sometimes I stop and I think, oh, maybe it's in my genetics,
Yes.
it's part of who we are. But I just really like that we balance, it's the word, I always think of the Anglican community as an intelligent community, and that we include common sense, that we don't try to drive, any dogma in,
Mm-hmm.
and allows for a range of, I wouldn't say a range of beliefs. Our beliefs are beliefs, but the way that we practice and express ourselves. And so it was funny because I remember in Form 5 saying, oh my goodness, I don't want to go to church. I told my mommy, God will understand that I want to stay home and because I have CXC exams and I
Right.
shouldn't go to church. And she's like, seek ye first the kingdom of God. And I'm like, all right, mommy. And so imagine my shock that I go to campus and I'm still actively going to chaplain. So I would go to church. I went to, I participated in movement of Anglican staff and
Yes.
students on
Yeah.
campus,
Hmm.
right? And so I would go to chaplain on a Sunday because I stayed on Trinity Hall, and that's where I met Father West. So after, when I ended up moving up north, that was my home church,
Right.
right? Like
Holy
I could
Savior.
never give up.
Holy
Yeah,
Savior and
Holy
Kira.
Savior in Curab. So I could never give up being a St. Stephen's girl.
Right.
But I also now had Holy Savior as part of. And as you know, when you join Happening and you meet people from the rest of the diocese, then suddenly
Yes.
there are other churches that you get to visit and you feel a
Yes.
part of. And, there were other things in the diocese that in participating, you felt more in communion. But for me, by the time Happening came around and I met all these people, oh my goodness, like the church, I always, like, even now when I see new names, I'm like, who's that? How come I don't know who that is? Because you're like, oh, you don't consider the church to just be St. Stephen's anymore, to just be Holy Savior.
Yeah.
That the diocese is your church and you know all these people and you're part of this wider communion, which I think makes the Anglican Church fantastic.
So if you had to describe what happening is, what
Hmm.
to people watching who don't know what happening is, what would you say happening is?
I would say that Happening is a youth retreat that is run by young people that really connects them to who God is and the power of God in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that there's all this, and I don't know how strong it's remained now, but I know that there's all this thing about at one point in time, at least back in the day, that it was a cult and why it is you can't talk about what's going on
What?
and all that sort of thing. Yeah. But I think there are lots of things that happen over the weekend that if you explain every single
Yes.
detail, it
Mm-hmm.
takes away from the
Agreed.
miracle of the weekend,
Agreed.
you know, right? And so it's not, when you actually participate, you're like, well, it's nothing, it's nothing that, there's nothing wrong or odd about it. But if you speak of it, it takes away from that opportunity to be surprised, to be in awe, to see what God can do. But I love the fact that it's a weekend where the young people are pampered, and you feel like you try to meet their needs in every way so that they could
Yes.
be open to receiving the Holy Spirit, right? Because when a man is hungry and you're trying to teach him to fish, he'd be like, what's your problem? So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you need to feed the man first, and then he's willing to learn how to fish, because when your belly is empty, you're just hearing the growl of your stomach.
Exactly.
You're not hearing what somebody else has to say, right? And so it's so important. And I think that's what the weekend does. It kind of feeds every other part of you so that you open yourself up. And sometimes, it's amazing. Like, it's amazing for me because I can't even remember how many happenings I, was a part of over the years. I should know, but it's been a
Mm-hmm.
while, so you could forgive me. But it's always amazing to see the ones who are most resistant at the beginning
Yes.
of the happening when Holy Spirit touch them, right? You just, and like I'm talking about it now and I'm just feeling the goose pimples
Yes.
because
Yes. Yes. It just
I,
transported me back to that time. It's amazing.
I remember for happening number one, it is. I was talking to we got together for as a group of happeners after Auntie Barbara's passing. And part of it, we were reminiscing. And I remember saying, I didn't even know, like for happening number one, I remember distinctly standing up outside on a Saturday afternoon saying, God, here you go again.
Mm-hmm.
Like when we had, it was so much trying to figure out, because it's the first one,
Yes.
trying to figure out the location, wondering if it's comfortable enough, all these sorts of things. And then when you saw people so moved by the Holy Spirit and you knew that it was God's hand, it's like, you just wanted to cry because
Mm-hmm.
there you go again, God. We always feel we don't have enough. We always feel that we can't do it. And afterwards, we've seen it where, yes, we've gotten a nicer accommodations and all that sort of thing, but we feel we don't have enough of this or not enough people or not, whatever it is. And God never ceases to work. And for me, that's why I love happening, because I feel as if God validates himself and the purpose of that retreat every time I participated. So yes.
Yes, I agree with you. And I mean, of course, not wanted to spill any beans about the retreat, but there were a few key moments in that retreat over that weekend that just was like, oh, and I think about it still, and it's just like, you know, God really spoke to me that weekend. And I mean, things have been on
Yeah,
and off, life gets to you sometimes, but you can always
it
go
does.
back to there and know that God is with you throughout every single thing,
Okay, baby.
So
It's okay.
um it's amazing. Well, of
Yes.
course, when we talk about happening, we talk about Auntie Barbara, right? Everybody
Yes.
who did happening would have met Auntie Barbara, right?
Yes.
And may she rest in peace. And I
Yes.
just keep thinking, Trinity Cathedral, Holy Trinity Cathedral would have been filled to the brim,
Yes.
because, of how many people she would have touched with happening.
Yes.
Could you tell me a little bit
Yes.
about the relationship that you would have had with her?
So in the end, Auntie Barbara ended up being another mother for me. And because I met Auntie Barbara because for whatever reason I was chosen as one of the first people to go to Texas to experience happening to bring it to Trinidad.
Right,
And so I met her there. I met her amazing sister Betty and just their church community. And so here we are, we came back and we had to work together to get this happening off the ground. So of course I spent a lot more time with her, got to know her. And she always said, because I think, was I renting? She's like, if you want to stay up north, you can stay with me. And I'm like, okay. I never took it seriously.
right.
And then eventually I did. Like I went and I lived with Auntie Barbara for probably a year. I don't think I'm exaggerating. And so in living with her and living with Uncle John, um, she really became a mom to me. Um, and I loved being around her and Uncle John.
Right,
One of the things that amazed me, every morning Uncle John would make breakfast for Auntie Barbara before she left for work.
right,
And they included me. Like he didn't even stop to think. He's like, okay, breakfast is here, come, and we
right,
sat down as this little family sitting together having breakfast every morning. And everybody knows Auntie Barbara is very particular, and so everything is always done right and correct and that sort of thing. And it's, I always said that, like I looked at them and said, Auntie Barbara, like, how are you all going to be able to live without each other?
mm-hmm,
You know, um, and so when Uncle John died, I was devastated because I couldn't get home to be with her.
right,
And and she was really sad. Like she really missed Uncle John. Right. And I remember at one point in time saying about Auntie Barbara, oh gosh, look, I know it's been a while, but God still have you here, you know.
mm-hmm,
I don't know what it's for, but he still have you here. And I know you're missing Uncle John, but you know, but she I really loved her. One of the, I mean, some people might hear this and be like, but she never visited me. One of the people I always had to visit when I came back home was Auntie Barbara.
right,
Like it didn't matter what had come, I made sure she met the girls because they, as far as I'm concerned, that's one of their grandmoms. And not taking
mm-hmm.
my mom's place, but
Of course,
that's the love I have for her. Anything she was there for me. And for the happening movement, as someone who didn't have children herself, like she was really passionate about doing something for the young people of Trinidad and Tobago. It was important for her that that happening was a success, and it was important for her that anything that we do as Anglicans, as happeners, that we always do it to the glory of God and
right,
well. So
right,
sometimes she came across a little like, you know, if you
yes,
don't do it this way,
particular,
rah, 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 she
yeah,
get. But it was her. That's how she was with everything. She wanted things perfect. Like I remember when she went back to Mount Hope and was working in the sterilization unit because she was the head there. And it was the same thing. Like she'd come back and saying, these people don't understand. Like these are the equipment that people need to use for surgeries, and therefore there's it needs to be done properly. And she got that
Right.
unit right back up. But that's who she was, like someone who she it comes across as a bit stubborn,
Mm-hmm.
you know but once you could meet with her and talk and say, okay, this is why, then she'd be like, she's welcome to be open. But because she likes things done ABCD, you have to be able to say, okay, I get the ABCD, but how about maybe we add E in. And what was also interesting is that, of course, she felt she needed to do everything. Sometimes like Auntie Barbara, especially with happening, because she wanted everything so perfect.
Of
You'd be
course,
like,
yes.
Auntie Barbara, it's okay to let somebody else do it. Like you can't do this. Let somebody else do this little piece now.
Yeah.
And however it's done, it's okay because once they're doing it to the glory of God,
Mm.
and we just need to know that the intentions are there. So I loved Auntie Barbara. I learned, I think I had a better appreciation of being an Anglican because of her.
Right.
There are things that I learned, like just even silly things. I remember we are talking about how you make up the bed, and talking about the cotton count,
Yeah.
because I didn't even know that that was something. And then we talked about how we put it's just one of those moments that popped into my head now, and how you put the pillow on the bed because he didn't want the opening to be pointing out of the door. And I said, well, she said you're supposed to point them this way. And I'm like, I like to do it this way because I feel as if it got silly little things, but just having those conversations.
Yes.
And one of the things I truly admired about her is how she embraced technology.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was always shocked. Like she had her computer. If anything wrong, she got it fixed. She had the phone. Before a lot of people were embracing the technology back then. So much about her. Like I love her. I miss her. I grieve that I wasn't home. I was one of those who looked on the live stream
Yes.
for her, and I'm praying that when it's time for her ashes to be interned, whenever Auntie Betty decides, that it's a time that I could come as well, because yeah, eh, I know some people feel like I, the funerals are for the living, it's not for the dead.
Right.
And it's our sense is for me to have that closure. And I'm sorry that I couldn't be at that service to get the closure, but at least if with the ashes that I get that opportunity. But she, yeah, yeah.
Well, it sounds as if she had this really huge impact on you. So, how did
Yes.
she react when you said you were moving to Canada?
Um, it's funny. Like I think back then, because it's one of those things when she knew I had applied for,
Right.
right? And I'm like, I don't know if this I and I'm strange this way. When I do things, it always seems to take a little longer or go a different course. Like everybody else, they do things and it just goes the way it's supposed to, not Liselle. Liselle has to have a little adventure when she has to do these things. And most people got through with their application in under 6 months. Mine took about a year,
An application for what?
right? I
Just to
can't
be
tell
clear?
you why.
Just to be
To
clear?
to oh yeah, sorry. So I had applied for landed immigrant status in Canada,
Okay.
and it was one of those things where I was, if I'm honest with myself, I was running. Um, One of the things that I'm not good at, and I'm still not, and it was an expensive lesson for me to learn, is I'm not good at saying no. So
Ah,
when the church needs help and they need you to do something, okay, okay. And so suddenly, but recently someone said to me, if you want to get something done, give it to a busy person. And that had been characteristic of my life back then.
right.
That people felt, give it to Lisa, it will get done. And I didn't know how to say no. So I felt if I went anywhere, it didn't necessarily have to be Canada, but if I went anywhere, people will not know what I'm capable of and not ask me anything. And I
Right.
came to Canada and I was just as involved in everything. So obviously, so
You can't
so
hide.
what it was is that I can't, right? And so what it was is that I had applied for landed immigrant status in Canada.
Hmm.
It took a long time for it to come through. And so when it did come through, my life had felt a lot more settled in Trinidad, but I said, I don't want to live a what if life. So she
Mm-hmm.
understood that, and she understood why it is that I was trying to make the move that I was. So, I know she missed me, but she had Kester anyway.
Oh,
But she she understood. Okay. Yes.
right. So you moved to Canada. What was that like? What you had any expectations, or you just like, I'm going to experience whatever happens?
So I didn't have my expectations were that I was qualified and that it wouldn't take a long time to get employed.
Right.
And that was a huge misconception on my part.
Mhm.
Not only did it take me a long time to get a job, um, the first job that I got was way below what I was doing in Trinidad.
Right.
And I felt I've always been one of those. I've been fortunate, but because I had an aunt here, my mom gave us the opportunity to travel to Canada a lot. So I never felt that my education, my exposure, my ability was any different from anybody abroad. Like if I study in Trinidad, then I should be able to do anything anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not the perception. That's not here. The thing is, you don't have Canadian experience, and you're like, what does that even mean?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it took a long time for me to actually get a job. I heard some really disappointing comments, so I'll just be polite, as to why I wouldn't necessarily be hired.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, I got like a breakthrough opportunity to work as an admin assistant. And this is after leaving Trinidad as a software engineer,
Right.
right? And I studied, like I did my BSc, I did my master's. I'm a proud UWI grad. I think the education that I got at UWI was solid.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's proven itself over the years with all the other courses I've done. I felt as if I always had the right foundation. And so it was disappointing. I finally got, and I said to myself, if I don't get a job in a year's time, I'm heading back to Trinidad.
Right.
And right on a year's time, I got a job. I
Right.
think I still should not have. It's so funny. I was just talking to my mom about it last night. I said, I think if there was any time I should have turned back, it was then. When I got that job and I realized it wasn't necessarily up to what I would have wanted to do and expected to do. Like I would have gotten a year, I would have done some contract work, been exposed somewhere else, but I probably should have gone back to Trinidad. But unfortunately, no. But the one thing that I did immediately in coming here was just to find another Anglican church. And
Right.
I wasn't fussy. I wasn't fussy. I just found, because for me, it wasn't, a big thing here is networking and who you know and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't to build a network, it was to be in communion with other
Yeah.
Anglicans and to make
Yeah.
sure that my faith walk continued. And one day I'm driving. My cousin was taking me to like a government building or something. And in driving in the area, I saw a church called Church of the Holy Spirit. So of course it reminded me of Holy Savior, and I'm like,
Of
oh, I like the
course.
name. Yeah, and so so I started going, and then I joined the choir, and then I'm like, but there's no youth group here, so I started a youth group, and then they asked
Mm-hmm.
me, oh, you wanna do? So there I am, the same person
Doing,
who said
yes, doing stuff, right?
exactly, right, and I so I ended up I was doing that, and then I was leading the youth group, and then I became the treasurer. And then something else I was doing, and then I decided I was doing Bell Walk for Kids. I was on their committee by the second year I was in the country. And I was even doing something called Eva's Initiatives. And I'm like, Liselle, so who is the problem here exactly? People
Mm-hmm.
asking you? Oh, all right. So
Right.
that was my where I learned that I needed to learn to say no, right?
Right.
And to be able to manage my time. But it's one of those things. For me, this is where our Christian faith sometimes conflicts with some of my sound decisions. I don't even know if that's the right way to say it. But I always feel that, especially when it comes to work in church, that I'm not doing it for people, I'm doing it for God.
Right. Exactly.
Right? And so sometimes it feels like too much, but then I'm like, who are you doing this for? And if you're called for service, then you got to do it. I don't want to be that guy with the one talent who just buried it.
Mm-hmm.
And but sometimes we one of the things that I'm trying to really get better at now is um, peace, no matter what's going on. Really being at peace, and the importance of true rest, right? Not just sleeping, but rest that allows you to be restore yourself. And that God does expect us to restore. He did rest. Like he had a
Mm-hmm.
day of rest where he said to rest. Like, I am not God. I might be his child, but I am not God. So who made me feel that I could go 24/7 and not take some rest and because even with my girls, I keep telling them there are two things that mommy wants you to do: sleep and eat. And when you sleep, your body gets a time to heal and restore itself.
Mm-hmm.
It's for them and it's for me too. So
Right.
um, really getting better at that piece. Just being able to find PEACE and truly finding, getting opportunities to find true rest.
Right. That was a little sermon there, Lizelle. I appreciate that reminder, especially now where you have to work from home and then you have to
Yes.
manage children and if you have a husband or the household,
Yes.
it just
Household.
everything
Yeah.
all in one.
Yes. Yes.
It
And
is it's so tough sometimes.
it is tough because there's no segregation between your home life and your work life. And
Exactly.
I've always felt that they keep talking about this balancing act. I've always felt that at some point in your life you're going to be working too much, or you could never live too much, but you could certainly work too much, right? And it's really, I used to be very offended in the beginning where with the memes about people who are going to learn a new language
Yes.
and do meditation. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I am cleaning more than I've ever cleaned in my
Right?
life.
Washing a
I
set of clothes too.
washing clothes and
Folding
washing things
clothes.
and washing things you never even realize you're supposed to wash because we're using it so much, like simple things like your bath mats and stuff like that, that suddenly, because we're in the bathroom all day, you're not using the bathroom somewhere else. And so you just do. I just find if I wasn't working from home or trying to entertain the children or pretending to cook, because I don't really like to cook but I have to feed them, and then cleaning, and you're just exhausted, and sometimes you didn't even appreciate the mental toll that COVID is taking on you as well. The fact that we
Exactly.
are under lockdown, and the fact that there's so much uncertainty, so it's draining. It's been
Yeah.
draining, right?
But in the midst of this, Lizelle, do you
Hmm.
have a favorite Bible verse that you look to for comfort, support, peace, anything? A verse that just makes you feel better.
So I would say my favorite Bible verse is really, I can do all things through him who strengthens me, right?
Right. That's a
Philippians
good one.
4:13. And sometimes I forget it, I will admit. But that has definitely been one. What I found that I used a lot lately was a lot of music and
Hmm.
songs. But one of the things, and I laugh about this whole genetic thing again. One of the things that I found out is my favorite hymn was actually my grandmother's favorite hymn, my mother's mom, and it's "Great is Thy Faithfulness,"
Ah, good one. That's a
right?
good one.
And so I, it's one of those songs where somehow your brain kind of defaults to, um, you know, God is great and He is faithful, and I remind myself over and over again, and I look back and I look to see, because sometimes one of the things, especially with the first year I was here in Canada, I was a bit annoyed with God. I would be honest, right? My life wasn't kind of turning out into what I expected it to be, but I, even when I'm annoyed with God, I love Him. Even though when I'm annoyed with God, I know that I'm nothing without Him, And so for me, going to church regularly was a way of saying, God, I love you. I still vex with you, but I love you, right? And
Hmm.
so sometimes I find like I'm not necessarily able to dig deep into scripture, because I feel so hurt. But then I could look at songs, or I keep reminding myself, look back at all the things that God has done for you. Look back and see the times when you thought things would not work out. You don't know how
Mhm.
you're going to pay a bill, that he just made a way for you, right? So that's part of what, especially during COVID, I've been using as my look back, Lisa. Look and see what God has done for you. Why are you worried about your future? And actually, I'm gonna read something for you that I thought was really powerful. I only heard this just last week, so it's not something that I knew, and it was so moving to me. I printed it and I put it on my wall, and it says it's a prayer from Thomas Merton. He's a Trappist monk, and he's one of the more modern monks in our society who's passed. And it starts, "My Lord God, I have no idea where I'm going. I do not see the road ahead of me. I cannot know for certain where it will end, nor do I really know myself. And the fact that I think that I am following your will does not mean that I'm actually doing so. But I believe that the desire to please you does in fact please you. And I hope I have the desire in all that I am doing. I hope that I will never do anything apart from that desire. And I know that if I do this, you will lead me by the right road, though I may know nothing about it. Therefore will I trust you always. Though I may seem to be lost and in the shadow, I will not fear, for you are ever with me, and you will never leave me to face my perils alone." And my mind
Wow.
was, yes, thank you.
Mhm.
My mind was blown. I'm like, thank you,
Wow.
Lord. Those are the words I didn't know to say for myself. That
Yeah.
is how I feel about now.
Yes.
And that's why it's on my wall.
Yeah. Wow.
Right?
That's so powerful. That
It
is really
is.
powerful. That
It
really
is.
is powerful. Wow. Thanks for sharing that, Lizelle. Thank you so much.
My
So
pleasure.
you came to Canada by yourself, but I see you have a beautiful daughter there, family.
Yes.
Well, how did that come about?
I don't even know myself, no? It's one of these things where so I actually, my now husband, we went to university together back however number of years ago. I should be embarrassed to say this, but I never really paid attention to him back then. And because of Facebook, when I was in Denmark, actually, we started chatting, and I'm like, who's this crazy person crashing my wall? And we started chatting, and there was a time that we stopped chatting, and I realized, hey, I really miss this guy. And so we started chatting even more. And now fast forward, it's been 7.5 years and
Nice.
two children, a 6-year-old and a 5-year-old. My 6-year-old, you want to come quickly and say hi? Who doesn't who's so happy with her TV? Say hi.
Hello.
Hi. Okay.
Hi.
And my 5-year-old here, who's looking for all the attention and is trying
And the
not to sleep with
hugs.
me tonight by crying this much, right? Yeah. And so, it's one of those things where and I've said that so much, but I had felt that it was a God, like God was there, like I hope so. The fact that we met and we connected, and I think our approach to our religion, our faith as Christians is a little different, but his is there. And so, one of the most important things for me is I have to laugh. Like, I had no intentions of having a reception. I'm like, the most important thing is the church. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
interested in having too much reception. And then my mom reminded me the importance of my family. And it's true. Like, I'm really blessed to have amazing family.
Right.
So, and so the deal was that they paid for the reception. So it was a small gathering, like really
Right.
small. And there are a couple more people we invited just because of their relationship with my aunt here, who's like my mom, as well as my mom's older sister. And yeah, I got married in Canada. I didn't think I was, well, how old was I? I'm probably not supposed to tell my age too much, but I had reached an age where I I'm going to be the favorite aunt. I'm going to be the one who gets the best presents.
Right.
I'm going to make sure I'm home and then, just like that, like, I
Blessing.
have one, and like, and I know people be like, what? I My doctor had said to me, I'm going to need treatment to have kids. So my children for me are true miracles because I
Right.
did not need treatment to have my children.
Amen.
Yes.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Now I
Yeah.
remember one time on Facebook on your wall you shared that you had a near-death experience while giving birth to your first daughter. And I know maternal death is something that we see going on, well, at least in the United States. I don't know what it's like in Canada, but I
Yeah.
don't know if you're willing to share that experience you had while giving birth.
Yeah. It's so it's one of those stories with God really shows up in amazing places. So I had gone in to have my daughter. They said go back. I came back in this Saturday, and everything was going okay. Yes, in a lot of pain. I was one of the crazy people who didn't want to take an epidural because I deal with anxiety. So I wanted to feel as if I was in full control.
Mm-hmm.
So my daughter pops out, and I get to hug her for the first time. And they're saying, okay, why isn't your placenta slipping out? And they tugged at it. And apparently, because of course I'm not seeing all of this, apparently it was like a fountain, spurting out from me. And so I said, not knowing that was happening, I said to them, I feel as if I'm leaving the room. And
Right.
they're like, what does that mean? And my amazing nurse, um, Oksana, I won't forget her name, she immediately took my blood pressure, and it was something ridiculous, like 60 over 10 or something. And they're like, that can't be true. And but thankfully we had there was a head doctor in the room, and they're like, we have to take her to emergency right away. So they
Right.
took me in, knocked me out, removed this stuff. Apparently it turned out that my I had a fibroid, and the placenta was stuck onto the fibroid.
Wow. Well, thank you so very much, Lizelle, for sharing so much about your life back in Trinidad and in Canada. And one of the things I remember about you, back in happening and even after, is that you just always looked pleased and happy to see people. You never looked like, I don't want to be around you all today. You just always gave off an air of happy, of calm, of peace. And I always appreciated that about you. I really, really, I really, really do. But then to hear now that, you're kind of tired and you had to juggle all these different responsibilities,
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting. I didn't know that was going on in the background.
Yes.
Interacting with you is always a very positive experience, really, really positive.
Thank you.
So I'm so glad that we are still in contact and
Yes.
things are going well with you in Canada. And I really want to wish you all the best. I don't know if you have any words of wisdom to share with our viewers before we end.
I don't know that I'd ever be called wise. I think, you know, the one thing I've been a little accused of, but I think serves well, kind of based on what you say, that I consider to be a compliment, is that, God exists in all of us.
Mhm.
And everybody has a bit of good in them. We don't know what people are going through. We don't know what their circumstances are. So we shouldn't be the one to bring them down. And if all we can do is smile, and not, like, even if I want to roll my eyes because you're my presence, I should go and do in the background. Like when I meet you, it should be, um, I should want to be pleased, and be happy, because this is, whether you're Christian or not, I believe everybody is a child of God, and we all are piece of, and all of us are the pieces that make up who He is. So we need to recognize that in each other, even though sometimes it's really hard to do with some people. And that it's more and more, God is reminding me over and over again, find your peace.
Mm.
Like, find peace in God. It doesn't matter what you're going through. We need to recognize that a lot of our life adventures they're not failures, they're life lessons. They're things that we need to learn from. They're things that God is trying to get us to see about ourselves and to grow. And we need to look at that as an opportunity to grow, and we could only grow in connecting with Him. So as we go through the challenges, it's to say, you know what, you are my God, and I trust in you. And I don't know why I'm going through this. And sometimes I say to our Lord, Lord, I don't know what it is you're trying to treat me here right now, but I need to always look at it as something that I have to learn from. something that I need to grow. And sometimes it's difficult to see the light at the end of the tunnel with it, but always look at it as an opportunity to grow and to become closer to God and to learn something to be better. Like there are no mistakes in life, good or bad, God makes good of it. And we need to, as painful as it feels sometimes, we need to allow God to make good of everything.
It's a great
Mm,
message for us to end on. Thank you so, so much. And
my
thank you
pleasure.
everyone for watching. Everyone take care and be safe. Bye.
Bye.